What is evolution? Evolution is how life has developed on planet Earth. It's a process that began millions of years ago, and it's still happening today. Evolution helps explain the amazing variety of living things around us. It shows how simple life forms, like tiny protozoa, became millions of different species. In other words, it answers the question we all have when we see a dachshund next to a Great Dane: how can two animals that look so different be related? To explore this, we'll focus only on animals, not plants or fungi. So, the first question is, how can one animal turn into a completely new species? But wait, what exactly is a species? A species is a group of animals that can reproduce and have babies, and those babies can grow up and have babies too. To understand evolution better, we need to look at a few key ideas. 1. The uniqueness of living creatures, thanks to reproduction and inheritance. 2. Natural selection. Every creature is unique, and that's necessary for evolution to work. Members of the same species may look similar, but they still have different traits and features. Some may be a bit bigger, stronger, or weaker than others. Why do these differences exist? Let's look closer. All living things are made of cells. Inside each cell is a nucleus. The nucleus contains chromosomes, and chromosomes contain DNA. DNA is made up of genes, and these genes carry information. They give the cell instructions and determine how the organism looks and behaves. And that DNA is unique to every individual. That's why no two animals are exactly the same. But how do we get such a huge variety of DNA? A major reason is reproduction. In nature, animals often have more babies than they actually need. So many of them die young. There are often more babies than the environment can support. This helps increase diversity within a species. The more babies are born, the more tiny differences appear. And nature loves those little differences. The second reason for uniqueness is inheritance. Inheritance means passing down DNA from parents to offspring. Two important processes are involved: recombination and mutation. Recombination is the mixing of DNA from two parents. When two animals mate, they mix their genes in two steps. First, when they make sperm and egg cells. These cells each take half of the parent's genes and mix them. Second, when the sperm and egg join during fertilization. Each parent gives 50% of their DNA to the baby. These get mixed again, creating a new and unique individual. The baby ends up with a random mix of its parents' traits. This adds even more variety to the species. But mutations also matter. Mutations are random changes in DNA. They're like copy mistakes caused by chemicals or radiation. A mutation happens when part of the DNA is altered. Often, these changes are bad and can cause illness like cancer. But sometimes they do nothing or even create something helpful. Like blue eyes in humans, which came from a random mutation. For a mutation to be passed on, it has to affect a sperm or egg cell. That's why we protect our reproductive organs during X-rays, because only those cells pass on DNA. So, in short, through inheritance, traits are passed to the next generation via DNA. Recombination and mutation change DNA, making every baby slightly different from others. And here's the key word: randomness. These changes happen by chance. Random recombinations and mutations create new individuals, each with their own mix of traits to pass on. But if it's all random, why do animals seem so perfectly adapted to their environment? Like the stick insect, or the hummingbird, or the frogfish. That's where natural selection comes in. Every living thing goes through this process. Remember, every individual is a little different. There's variety in every species. External factors affect who survive. These are called selective pressures. Predators, parasites, other animals, toxins, habitat changes, or weather. Selection forces each creature to play by nature's rules. Each individual has a mix of traits. That mix either helps them survive or not. Those with the wrong mix usually don't survive. Those with the right mix live on and pass their helpful traits to their babies. That's why diversity is important. Many creatures try to have as many different babies as possible, to increase the chance that some will survive natural selection. A great example is Darwin's finches. These birds became famous thanks to Charles Darwin. A long time ago, a small group of finches ended up on the Galapagos Islands. Maybe they were blown off course during a storm. They found a paradise, lots of food. They had many babies and spread across the islands. But food supplies eventually ran low. The paradise turned into a competitive world. And that's when natural selection kicked in. The small differences, like beak shape, became important. Some birds had beaks perfect for digging up worms. Others had beaks better for cracking seeds. They formed groups that didn't compete as much with each other. And they started mating within those groups. Over generations, those beak types became more specialized. The birds became better adapted to their food sources. And eventually, the differences were so big they couldn't mate with each other anymore. New species were born. Today, there are 14 different species of Darwin's finches in the Galapagos. All of them came from the same original bird. This is how evolution creates new species. Through individual differences, frequent reproduction, genetic recombination and mutation, and finally, natural selection. Why does this matter? Because it explains where all this life comes from and why living things are so well suited to their environments. It even affects us. Every person alive is the result of 3.5 billion years of evolution. Your ancestors fought to survive and adapt. And survival was never guaranteed, especially when 99% of all species that ever lived are now extinct. That makes you part of a success story. Dinosaurs are gone, but you're here watching this video because you're special, like every living thing that exists today. Unique, irreplaceable, and one of a kind.